In one moment, a crowd of angry men held stones ready to kill. In the next, they dropped those stones and walked away in silence. What did Jesus write in the dust that day that turned executioners into the condemned? The answer lies not in theology books, but in the ancient ground beneath their feet. This isn't about forgiveness or mercy. Those came after. This is about knowledge so powerful, so immediate, that it stopped murder in its tracks. The dust held secrets that day, secrets that spoke louder than any sermon ever could. What Jesus wrote in the dust revealed something each accuser recognized instantly, something so personal, so damning, that they couldn't run away fast enough. Tonight, we uncover what those words were and why they changed everything.
The woman caught in adultery wasn't the real target that morning. She was bait, a trap set by religious leaders to corner Jesus. They thought they had him cornered between Roman law and Jewish law. They were wrong. These weren't random accusers. They were Pharisees and scribes, men who knew the law inside and out, men who had spent their lives studying, memorizing, interpreting every letter of sacred text. Yet something Jesus wrote made them flee like children caught stealing. The trap seemed perfect. Under Jewish law, adultery meant death by stoning. Under Roman law, Jews couldn't execute anyone without Roman approval. Whatever Jesus said would either make him a lawbreaker or a hypocrite, or so they thought. But Jesus didn't speak. He bent down and began writing in the dust with his finger. This wasn't casual doodling. In ancient Jewish culture, writing on the ground had deep, specific meaning. It was a prophetic act, a divine revelation being inscribed.
The Greek word used here is katagrapho, to write down, to inscribe with authority. This was the same word used when God's finger wrote the 10 Commandments on stone. Jesus was invoking divine authority, not just making marks in dirt. Ancient rabbinical tradition held that when someone wrote in dust or sand, they were revealing hidden truths, bringing secret knowledge into the light. The act itself announced that divine secrets were about to be exposed. When the accusers kept pressing, Jesus stood up and spoke his famous words, "Let him who is without sin cast the first stone." Then he bent down and wrote again. The second writing was different. This time, it was personal. Ancient sources suggest Jesus wrote their names, not just any names, but their secret names, their hidden identities. In Jewish mystical tradition, knowing someone's true name meant knowing their deepest secrets, their hidden sins.
But there's another possibility, one that fits the historical context perfectly. Jesus may have been writing the specific sins of each accuser, sins they thought no one knew about, sins they had covered up for years. The phrase, "beginning with the oldest," isn't random. In Jewish society, age brought authority, but also more time for hidden sins to accumulate. The older men had more to hide, more reasons to fear exposure. Consider the psychological impact. These men had spent their lives as moral authorities, judging others, maintaining public reputations. Suddenly, their darkest secrets were literally written in the ground for all to see. Some scholars believe Jesus wrote the specific witnesses required by Jewish law, witnesses these men couldn't produce because they had lied about catching the woman in the act. Where was the man? Jewish law required both parties to be brought forward. The dust itself matters. Temple dust was considered sacred, mixed with the prayers and tears of centuries. Writing in temple dust was writing with the weight of divine authority, the accumulated holiness of generations.
In rabbinic tradition, God himself was sometimes called he who writes in the dust, referring to how divine justice would eventually expose all hidden things. Jesus was invoking this ancient understanding, claiming divine authority to reveal truth. The Greek text says they left one by one, starting with the oldest. This wasn't mass panic, it was individual recognition. Each man saw his own condemnation written there, personal and undeniable. What's remarkable isn't that Jesus knew their sins. Many claimed prophetic insight. What's remarkable is that he wrote them down, made them visible, turned the invisible into the undeniably real. Ancient Jewish law required written testimony for serious accusations. By writing in the dust, Jesus may have been demanding, "Show me your written proof, your documented evidence." They had none. The word convicted in some translations literally means examined and found guilty. These men underwent a divine examination, a spiritual audit that exposed their own guilt while they were trying to expose someone else's.
Consider the irony. They came to trap Jesus with written law, and he responded with divine writing that trapped them. The written word became their undoing, not his. The woman stood in the center of this drama, probably expecting to die. Instead, she watched her accusers condemn themselves through their own recognition of guilt. Divine justice worked through revelation, not violence. Jesus stood up after the writing, after the exodus of accusers. The dust held its secrets for a moment more. Then the wind scattered the words back to silence. But their impact remained forever. This wasn't the only time divine writing appeared in Jewish history. Daniel interpreted the writing on the wall for Belshazzar. Moses received the commandments written by God's finger. Each time, written divine truth changed everything. The phrase "without sin" in Greek is anamartetos, literally without missing the mark. Jesus wasn't talking about perfection. He was talking about moral authority to judge. Who had the right to throw the first stone?
The dust writing created a sacred space, a place where truth and mercy met. It transformed a place of judgment into a place of revelation. The ground itself became holy through divine inscription. The silence that followed was profound. After the scratching in dust, the dropping of stones, the shuffling of departing feet, complete silence. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. The accusers came with stones and left with shame. They came with certainty and left with questions. They came to judge and left judged. The dust reversed everything. Consider the woman's perspective. She expected condemnation and received compassion. She expected exposure and witnessed others exposed instead. She expected death and discovered life. Jesus' final words to her weren't about the writing, but about the future. Go and sin no more. The dust revealed the past. His words shaped the future. One moment of divine writing changed a lifetime of possibilities. This story isn't just about ancient history. It's about the power of truth to transform accusation into self-examination, judgment into mercy. Join our community of seekers. Subscribe for more truths hidden in plain sight.
What Jesus wrote that day disappeared with the wind, but its impact echoes through every moment when truth confronts hypocrisy. Stay with us till the end, and you'll discover the mystery buried beneath history. If this resonates with your soul, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe right now. Here's what Jesus wrote in the dust that day. Not words, but names. The names of the women each accuser had secretly sinned with, the names of the bribes they'd taken, the names of the poor they'd cheated. He wrote their shadows in the dust, and they recognized themselves perfectly. In that moment, they understood that divine knowledge doesn't condemn, it reveals. And in revealing truth, it offers the only real path to freedom. The dust held their secrets, but Jesus held their souls. What do you believe? Comment below and share your insight.